Photoshop is designed basically for photo processing and retouching. It needs to be taken into account that 80% of the features and options are intended for photography. It is not called Photoshop for nothing. As a first approach to photo processing, in this new tutorial, we will address photo processing in terms of brightness and contrast. The adjustments that allow to process of photos are in the Image menu, Adjustments. We have a whole list dedicated to photo correction and processing. It consists of 23 adjustments. I know, you say that it is a lot, but we will explain and detail the essentials with a small example to understand how the adjustments work. Besides, you do not have to use them all. For editing brightness and contrast, we have 5 adjustments in principle. Let us start with the simplest. First, brightness and contrast. A simple panel to use. First, check the preview to have a visualization when using it. This set consists of a brightness bar that allows you to increase or decrease the brightness of your photo. A bar for contrast. If you flip to the left, it reduces contrast, while if I flip to the right, it increases. The advantage of this adjustment is that it is very easy, with a satisfactory result. The disadvantage is that this adjustment applies globally to the photo. One does not have light, dark or medium tones, so one does not know which tone applies. However, there stays an acceptable adjustment to get quick results and correct our photos. Second, exposure. This setting allows you to manage the exposure, that is to say, the overall brightness of a photo. It consists of 3 bars. First, exposure. Who manages the overall light of a photo? The offset, in which the global contrast is managed. The gamma correction, which allows managing the vignetting of the photo. Equipped with 3 pipettes, and found in almost all settings, these pipettes make it possible to sample neutral colors, so we have a sample to define the point white, gray, and black. Tell you that by its 3 colors, that we can also treat the brightness and contrast of a photo accurately. For example, we take the white pipette, and press on an area, not very white, the exposure changes itself, the same thing for gray and black. These 3 pipettes allow me to spotlight, medium, or dark tones. This adjustment is also equipped with some predefined parameters, with the option to save the changes as preset, or import other presets already saved. The use of this setting is simple, the same principle as brightness and contrast. However, use it carefully to not harm your photo. Your photo must not be overexposed, which means too bright, or underexposed, that is to say, too dark. Third, levels. Call it so, because in this adjustment we have access to light, medium, and dark tones, represented in levels. On our left is the dark tone, in the center is the medium tone, and on the right is the light tone. We also have an output level, going from black to white. An output level from 0 to 255. With its triangles, I can correct the brightness and add contrasts. Example. I finally increase the dark tones. Tilt medium tone slightly to the left for a slight contrast. And finally, switch the light tones to have a good brightness. We also have preset settings, like darker, lighter, increase contrast 1, increase contrast 2, etc. I can check auto to correct my photo automatically, something I avoid completely. The automatic settings give us no real result. The level adjustment also has the 3 pipettes that allow sampling in our image. White, gray, and black. But in the level adjustment, the result is not the same, because it also acts on the color. Let's take the gray pipette for example, and we press randomly, we notice a color change. In the Options tab, we have the panel for the Auto Color Correction option. I can configure my adjustment according to my needs from this panel. Because the level adjustment also interprets the color correction, we have a little idea about it. To the algorithms to which this setting works. By default, it is checked on brightness and contrast. That is to say, it is programming much more on correction of brightness and contrast. I can change for example on enhanced monochromatic contrast, that is to say, black and white. In processing a black and white photo, it would be very useful. I can find light and dark colors, etc. You can also change the sample colors by pipette with other colors. I can also save any changes made in this setting as the default. As a result, this panel is very accurate, I can set it up for color photo processing, black and white photo processing, and much more. Fourth, the curve. The curve adjustment is similar to the level setting. The difference is that the light and medium dark tones are represented not in levels, but curves, very precise as the level adjustment, because it is up to us to choose, or create our points, in medium and clear dark tones. For example, I create a dot with light tones, and increase it, at the top. And another point with dark tones, and I go down. It's called an S-curve, which means that I make the light tones lighter, and the dark tones darker. That's what allows me to create a perfect contrast. We have an input, and an output, the 3 pipettes, that sample the white, black, and gray as the setting levels. Show amount, like show the quantity, from 0 to 255, which is by default. We can display it by the pigment, which means by quantity and percentage. Change the grid size, why not? Choose what to display like histogram, baseline, etc. Having autocorrect, and preset settings. The same options of auto color correction, in other words, we have the same panel. A difference from this panel, that characterizes it better than adjustment levels in terms of precision, is this famous feature at the bottom, which allows us to choose our tones, according to our photo, so we can correct our photos more precisely. This tool detects light, dark and medium tones, just by hovering the cursor through the photo. Let's make an example curve in S. Choose light tones, like this. Then, the dark tones. This is our S-curve. The S-curve is the basic technique for light and contrast corrections. Fifth, shadows and highlights. As the name suggests, this adjustment allows you to correct the dark and light tones of a photo. We can display other settings by checking other options. Thus, we obtain several parameters in detail that allow us to correct the brightness and contrast of the photo. We have the amount, tones, radius, color. This is one of the essential adjustments to correct your photo at the level of contrast and light, very simple to use. With the repetitive options found in most settings, such as save, load, etc. Let us make a quick example. Let's start with the shadows. First, we lower the amount. Then, I increase the tones and radius to the maximum. Let us move to the highlights. Minimize the amount. Then, the opposite, increase the tones to 100%. Let us move on to the adjustment. Increase the color a little to have a good color vivacity. Finally, the last step is to increase the midtones for good contrast and considerable details. Here is our result.